Hi everyone, and welcome to Health Effects, your stop for public health news and content. I'm your host Nicole, and today's topic is inspiration porn. Inspiration porn is any form of media that promotes a person with a disability as inspirational for no other reason than the fact they have a disability. Inspiration porn is literally awarding a disabled person for not being dead. If this sounds patronizing, it is. It's really the ultimate participation award. Except that instead of no one giving a shit, your whole community rallies together to throw a fundraiser and gala where they weep at your achievement of binging on Doritos and marathoning The Office. She is so brave. This is all a fairly new phenomenon. The historical precedent was that people with disabilities were social outcasts that everyone else tried really hard to avoid. So basically, not much has changed. People with disabilities have also been demonized, hidden away, locked up in attics, and objectified so that able-bodied protagonists can learn a life lesson. Today, we can't explicitly discriminate anymore. So we do it in socially acceptable ways, like turning people with disabilities into saints and superhumans. For example, in Jane Eyre, entitled asshole Rochester literally has to almost lose an arm, nearly escape being burnt to death, and become blind to finally be virtuous enough for Jane Eyre. Sound familiar? Through inspiration porn, disability becomes socially palatable. Characters like Rochester and Will Traynor, who develop a disability, are instantly seen as more humble, virtuous, and brave. Non-disabled people are so uncomfortable around people with disabilities that they used to go out of their way just to avoid a social interaction. With inspiration porn, they can now directly infantilize and pity a person with a disability while simultaneously feeling very worldly and progressive about themselves. Because congratulating someone who lives with a disability is just congratulating yourself for not being openly disturbed by them. Wow, Stella, your ability to live a meaningful life despite cerebral palsy is just empowering. Basically, you get to feel good thinking that Stella has it shittier than you, and Stella gets 2 minutes of publicity and a backhanded compliment. Because that is sufficient as a replacement for social integration and well-paying jobs that people with disabilities actually need.
But where are the stats on that, Nicole? I need data.
Funny you should ask that, because maybe I would have more studies to talk about if medical science wasn't the Beyonce of disability research and social science was Michelle. One of the most prominent examples of inspiration porn is perhaps Jerry's Kids. Starting in 1966, Jerry Lewis would host annual telethons, asking for donations to the Muscular Dystrophy Association. He routinely brought kids with muscular dystrophy onto the show to exploit them for millions of dollars on national television. Just roll the clip.
And I promise you, I'll fly to Chicago and we'll knock down some pins. Okay?
Yeah.
Okay.
A month later, Lewis kept his promise and says Adam beat him by 10 pins.
I'd like you to know, my friend, that he's still alive 1 year since that date. And the mother and the father say, you came to bowl with him and he's going to stay alive for you.
Over 40 years, Jerry raised over $2 billion, 25% of which was delegated to administrative costs. What's that sound? Oh, that's right. It's time to play philanthrocapitalism's favorite game, Hide the Money. Is it in a Swiss bank account, the Caribbean, or maybe those six-figure employee salaries? Who knows? Still don't think this guy's an asshole? Well, in 1992, he published an article entitled, If I, Jerry Lewis, Had Muscular Dystrophy. In it, he refers to the disease as a curse and wheelchairs as a steel imprisonment. He goes on to describe his hypothetical condition, quote, when I sit back and think a little more rationally, I realize my life is half. I just have to learn to try to be good at being half a person. Thanks for that clarification, Jerry. So let me get this straight. A person with a disability counts as half a person. A Black person counts as 3/5 of a person. And if you're both, we just won't count you at all. Years later, as adults, Jerry's kids had this to say in response.
The arrogance of him to assume that he's a hero to those of us in our condition, the very idea that he would assume that we needed A, heroes, B, that he would be the hero that we would choose, it's just beyond my comprehension.
That bitch work.
Joining us today to look at more nuances behind inspiration porn is founder of the Sacred Hearts Children's Transplant Foundation and Project Ascend, Ola Ojewumi. Some people might argue that inspiration porn is, even though it stigmatizes people with disabilities, it does a lot of good by raising money for, children that need hospitalization or, of course, finding cures, for instance. What do you have to say to people who say that?
Inspiration porn can have a double-edged sword. There are certain things in this world that can be good and that can be bad. And though it does help children, it's also shaping their minds and how they see disability, as if it's the worst thing that can happen, not a natural part of life, which everyone will experience. For example, autism. There are very many autism organizations, and they're focused on finding the cure and scientific research related to that. But in reality, there are millions of kids with autism that aren't waiting for the cure. They're waiting for assistance to get jobs. They're waiting to be looked at as human beings and not individuals to feel sorry for. And they're waiting to live their lives, not in the shadow of their disability.
As a Black woman with a disability, can you speak to some of your experiences and maybe how that intersectionality plays out?
The intersection of being a woman and a Black woman with a disability, that's 3 identities. So I'm exposed to sexism, I'm exposed to racism, and I'm exposed to ableism. And these are facts and not just experiences. For example, I have a few Black men who are wheelchair users, and the first question they'll get is, were you shot?
Wow.
Or is it gang related? So your disability can be looked at as a result of your Blackness or something you caused by being violent and dangerous. I'm a part-time wheelchair user. And that means America, everyone, there are people who can walk and use wheelchairs. People think having a wheelchair is the worst possible thing in the world, and essentially it gave me life.
Thank you so much for sharing your story and your comments with us today, Ola.
Thank you.
Wait, I actually have one more question for you. Are you ready to play the 1-minute $10 challenge?
I'm excited, let's do it. I'm excited.
Let's go.
Don't congratulate me for being alive when you would rather be dead. But don't get it twisted, I'm still a boss. And I'm sorry, I ain't sorry for being your charity case, but I will be your next CEO.
Tell a boy bye, tell a boy bye, middle fingers up, I ain't thinking about you.
Congratulations, Ola! You successfully completed the $10 challenge and you get this crisp $10 bill.
I like that.
Wait, actually, because you're a Black woman with a disability, you're only going to be getting somewhere between $6.30 and something less than that, but we don't have the exact numbers because there's no disability research on pay gaps. So
this is jacked up. I'm done.
So today's episode of Health Effects is brought to you by the Bougie white word of the day, networking. Networking, verb. Strategically plotting out friendships and work relationships with the sole purpose of personal gain, also known as social climbing. When used in a sentence, it can be found, last week at the Met Gala, Becky befriended 2 HR managers, 3 CEOs, and the bartender. That girl can really network. For more information about networking, please find me on LinkedIn.